Let's dive back into it a little bit. You talked about the idea of immersion, and when I know we've sort of thrown around the word pet space, but how would you describe it? Can you kind of walk us through what that idea is referring to?
So I feel like it's just like any other space that you have in the lifestyle. If you're little or if you have subspace or dom space, but you go into feeling more connected with the animal that you are and start kind of thinking that way. And it can be really therapeutic because you do have that aspect of being someone or something different. And so it also can go as deep as you want or as light as you want as well, where you can be completely submerged and think you're a cat for your entire life, or you can have just a little bit of it where you just want to be scratched and pet and that's all you want. It can be either one.
Yeah, that kind of headspace or like that phenomenology has always been really interesting to me. Puck and I had a conversation a while back where we got into a conversation about caregiver little relationships, and we sort of discussed that specific mindset around little space. Uh, is there a meaningful distinction here? I heard you kind of compare it to that dom space or to little space, but for folks who maybe aren't in the lifestyle or maybe haven't spent a lot of time in role play or in these different things, is there something distinct about it or anything that you might any breadcrumbs that you might leave for somebody who's maybe looking to find themselves there?
I feel like it can be distinct. I am not an age player, so even though as a kitten I feel as close as I possibly would feel to being little,
Hmm.
I still don't identify as a little or an age player at that point. I'm just a kitten.
Yeah, I think there's at least a little bit of an element of like a I knows it when I sees it kind of thing. Like everybody's experience of it is a little bit different and unique. And I know that this is kind of conversational space that can feel a little uncomfortable for atheists as we are talking about sort of mental phenomena and these like different mindsets and things like that. Puck, I know you've got a lot more experience in little space, or at least in sort of that direction of things. What
Yeah.
would you maybe add to what Shay's saying?
that Everybody's going to come to a different idea of how they enter their headspace. Like there are some people who, okay, they know that there's going to be an event coming up this weekend or a meetup coming up this weekend, so they know that they can get into the right headspace for that. There are some people, they'll slip in and out of it several times in a day. And they'll do different things about that or signal their intention to their partner in different ways. And just in case Hornet's still listening, there is no one perfect way to do this, right? Sometimes you will just find yourself slipping into little space or dom space or pet space or anything, and that's not right or wrong. You don't have to be able to turn it on a switch and be able to perform, for events. Sometimes it just like you want to be there for the scene, you want to be ready for it, and it's just not there, and that's okay too. Everybody's going to enter and exit pet space and little space in a different way. Shade, what am I missing?
I don't think you're missing anything when it comes to that. Cause the preparation for pet space can definitely take, or any space can take time. Knowing that you have an event or a party coming up, doing different things to get you into those spaces. Uh, like I said, you don't have to have gear or anything like that to be a pet. I personally feel better when I have my kitty cat contacts in and wearing my bell and have my tail on me. It helps me get into the pet space. Um, but I didn't always have to have that. And I don't always need it to get into pet space, but I usually have to prepare myself to be in that mindset. I'm not someone who usually slips in and out of it. But I do know some littles who do slip in and out of it. You can be at the store and all they see is a squishmallow, and all of a sudden you have a child.
That's so specific and yet 100% accurate and like broadly true. The squishmallow phenomena is something we could do an entire episode on. But I guess I'll just very quickly mention that Puck, you brought up erotic audio and different things there. I think that erotic audio, particularly like meditation and hypnosis, is a really powerful tool here for empowering people to maybe change their consciousness to an extent and to maybe dive into some of these things. But beyond that, Shade, you talked about sort of the different types of animals and how that sort of informs the dynamic. I'm sure that there are, sweet little kitty cats that just like to have their ears scritched. And then there are maybe bratty, if that's an appropriate term, or maybe unsubmissive dogs and these different sorts of things. What are some of those different flavors or roles that people might experience in pet space?
So you do meet non-domesticated animals, someone who doesn't have an owner, doesn't want to have an owner. There are some pups that do like to be aggressive. They'll make their stance and they'll bark and they'll growl. And then of course you have the cats who sometimes want to be feisty and they hiss and swipe and want to bite. All those same things. It's kind of like actually having your dynamic with a bio animal sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
where you get annoyed by your pet if you're a handler because all they want is attention and attention and attention. And
Yeah, I'll actually maybe ask the two of you because perhaps this is a really strange metaphor, but in my mind, it totally clicks that there is a distinction between and yet a very bizarre, like postmodern similarity between playing guitar and playing Guitar Hero or like Rock Band or one of those old school video games. It's a different skill set, it's a different activity, and yet it kind of feels like it's tickling the same part of my brain. Does that feel true here? Is that an accurate way of describing it for either of y'all?
I do both rock band and play guitar, so I get where you're coming from with that similarity. Where it's like, sure, yeah, it's like two different sides of the same coin, where it's like it feels like you're scratching two different itches, but kind of the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. No, like my main interest with all this is like, we talk about there's individuals doing their thing, but for me it's like the partnership. That's what's fascinating to me. And the different ways that a dynamic will grow, like the way that a relationship with a pet will start on day one could be hugely different from what it looks like just a few weeks later,
mhm.
right? So more of my interest, like how do you develop that? Shade,
Uh,
how do you work with another person to get into the same space that you're in?
so it will depend on the type of pet you are, of course. Going back to like a pup, if a pup meets someone who's interested in being their handler and they're interested in having them as a handler back, you do a lot of things like puppy training, where you walk them on a leash, you use commands, if you want them to sit and you treat them, you you build that relationship and that bond with their mindset, their pet space, as you are building yours as a handler.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned hypnosis. Y'all have both mentioned different like outfits or accessories. What kinds of activities help to bring out this mindset? Like, what are some ways for folks who are perhaps new to it in particular to access this or to start to imagine themselves in these sorts of roles?
I would say definitely taking stances like positions, being on all fours, walking on all fours, vocalizing in that pet. Um, Although I don't know what a fox sounds like, and I know several foxes, so I'm
What
not.
does the fox say? Sorry,
So I know
sorry, I didn't
several
say
foxes.
We're gonna get it in chat for that one, I'm sure.
that.
And so it's something like that, just small simple steps that you can do to help get you there. Because like I said, without, if you don't have gear, you don't know if you're ready to have that commitment to the lifestyle, because gear can definitely cost a lot. Um, so just those little things that you can do, walking on all fours, vocalizing, meowing or barking or neighing, or if you're a pig, oinking, things like that. And then also doing what you want to be doing. If you're a dog and you want to be loved on and you want to go rub on your owner's legs and get scritches, then do that. And that kind of stuff starts putting you into that space if you haven't been there before.
Mm-hmm.
And since my mindset about, when talking about this is almost always about, relationships, my big thing is don't be afraid to talk about it, right? Like if you want to be more in pet spaces, and you got something out of it the last time, like the first time it starts to slip a little bit into that, talk about it, say, you know what, I actually really enjoyed that. What can we do to bring this out? Or, maybe the opposite, this was too far. I'm not ready to be that immersive into it yet. But talking to your partner, you're not going to get very far with your partner unless there's some good communication both ways, and some good understandings made as to, where you want to take this next step in the relationship.
Absolutely. Communication is definitely key with it, regardless. And yeah, going too far, you might not want to go out the very next day and buy a kennel and lock your person in a kennel and be like, you wanted to be a dog. You have some of those conversations where their interests lie and how far they want to take the pet play. If they want it to be something that they do at home all the time, or if they just want to go out to parties and experience it with other people, it's very important to have those conversations.
Yeah, for some people it'll be once every rare occasion we'll go to an event, and we'll participate. For some people, there's a little bit of the dynamic that exists almost their entire relationship. It's, so like, one of my previous partners, wow, just get a pack of Skittles and they are instantly in pet space, and that could happen like at any time. It's just interesting that you talk more from an individual perspective, and I think more about relationships and working together with other people, getting into it. I'm learning a lot today. This is really awesome.
Yeah, ultimately, I guess my curiosity is what is the value of this kind of play? I mean, it's fun, it's silly, but ultimately, is there anything special about having a partner or a community or even just time to yourself to connect with these like animal instincts? What is that experience like, or what does that do for you?
I actually really enjoy the community and going out into the community and interacting. I love going to moshes and having all the puppies like bark at me and I hiss at them and we interact with each other in that kind of way. Um, or if I am friends with several pups and I can bat at their tails because they wiggle around a whole lot and it's super fun to just play with. Um, and I forgot the question.
It's about well, maybe my answer will jog yours. That for me, engaging in these spaces is more of a means to an end, because as a service top, I want to make my sub feel as validated as possible, regardless of what it is that they want to explore. And by helping them feel validated about something that maybe they're very embarrassed about, they haven't told anybody, they don't feel like they can reveal this part of themselves, by having a safe place to explore that, and by having somebody say, hey, that's cool. Not only is that cool, let me help you with it. It helps to open up other parts of the relationship also. So for me, it's a means to an end thing. It's a means of building more of a relationship by starting with this as a base. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's what I personally get out of being in pet space. Did that help you a little bit, Shade?
A little bit. So
Okay.
I'm not really someone with like an owner or handler, and I've never really been that way. So I am not super great at talking about it as far as the relationship parts of that. I am married and have been with my partner for several years, and he knew about my pet stuff, and we do pet stuff together. But he's still not like my. I don't have an owner. I'm an
Mm.
independent animal, so I talk a lot about the independent side of it.
Do any cats have owners? I mean, that feels like a question worth asking.
um, I know maybe one. kitten as like an owner.
I mean,
But
if you're drawn towards that cluster of personality traits, it's just worth asking.
Yeah.
yeah, no, not really. We're not really owned very, very well. But that's why I like the community aspect of it, because being as independent as I am as a pet, going to the community and the events and stuff like that, and having other people treat me that way helps me be in my mind space and like get into that. And since I don't have that relationship aspect with it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'm
Puck,
so
did you
glad
have
we're having
anything
this
you
because,
wanted
like,
to add
last time,
before?
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just
Good.
going to ask if there was anything else you wanted to touch on before we return to the calls.
Just that I'm so glad that we were having someone like the last time we talked about this, Christy. I could only really kind of offer a hypothetical on the perspective of the other side. So it's really great that to have a person who's willing to be a spokesperson for their beliefs. So thank you very much.